Eva Hesse, a minimalist artist from the 60s, lived a short but full life. By full, I mean she experienced everything, from love to pain to heartbreak to loss to fame and to abandonment. And through all the trauma and events that occurred throughout her life, she was able to create art that would last for decades after. Hesse, with every piece she made, left clues to the hurricane within her and her mind for us to find and to follow. To not just learn about her and to understand her, but also to learn how to do the same for ourselves. The turmoil of Hesse's mind would begin when she was born in Nazi Germany in 1936. Her and her sister were sent away from her parents to go to school in the Netherlands until they could join together again and move to New York. Her mother was depressed and would leave their family. Her father remarried, and following this, her mother commits suicide. Almost 15 years later, in 1961, Hesse herself gets married to Tom Doyle, a fellow artist and sculptor. Around this time is when Hesse's career really takes off. However, in 1966, she and Doyle divorce, and 4 years later she passes due to a brain tumor. Hesse wrote in 1966, "Mother died. Father rejected me and took a competent, cold woman. Therefore, I feel I am helpless and incompetent. So I am like my mother, who was dependent, feminine, and sick." However, in her short career, Hesse created groundbreaking art. The Brooklyn Museum comments on Hesse, saying that she incorporates elements of mechanics, repetition, and motion, and incorporate experimental and impermanent materials. They claim that she stands unparalleled in originality and eludes categorization within one specific category. However, the art story defines her as falling under the categories of minimalism, post-minimalism, and feminist art. One thing that is for sure is that Hesse did not think inside of the box. One example of this would be her work Hang Up, constructed with acrylic on cloth over wood for the frame, and acrylic on cord over steel tube. The piece revolutionized art as it minimizes the space between the audience and the art, as well as the distinction between painting and sculpture. 20th Century Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a resource for educators, by Stella Paul, writes that the 20th century artist desired to comment on the human mind and condition, as well as reality and perception. Paul goes further to discuss common themes throughout the 20th century. They define the 20th century as having a sense of active experimentation, risk-taking, a self-conscious examination of the nature of art, work that reflects itself and its status as art, a keen attentiveness to the language of form and a belief in its power to communicate, a desire to provoke viewers to see things in new ways. The belief that art unveils fundamental psychological or phenomenological truths. A new approach to subjectivity that tests the limits of objective standards of reality, changing attitudes about the possibility or impossibility for objectivity. A new, inclusive approach to subject matter. In accordance to this, Hesse herself described her desire in 1966 that "I wanted to get to non-art, non-connotative, non-anthropomorphic, non-geometric, nothing, everything, but of another kind, vision, sort, from a total other reference point." This alludes to a longing to remove oneself from reality, as she did not want to conform to geometric or traditional shapings. She wanted to create something that captured everything and nothing all at once. This may suggest a sense of disillusionment that may have been caused by her association with World War II. We also see a lot of her trauma appear in her other works, two works of which are Accession 2 and Untitled Rope Piece. Accession 2 is a cube made of steel with rubber tubes that have been inserted through various holes in the steel. At first glance, this piece may reveal a relationship between a rough and rugged outer appearance and the more natural, easygoing interior. This piece, like many of her other works, may have erotic undertones. However, I believe it reveals Hesse's emotional state. Constructed after her separation from Doyle, as well as her father's passing, perhaps it was a take on her view of masculinity, strong and bold on the outside, but soft or ridiculous within. It also portrays a pain and sadness, as the colors are monochrome, only steel gray. The rubber tubing stabs through the walls of what are assumed to be strong and steel, showing that even the strongest people can have experienced great pain. Or, on a more hopeful note, that great pain and suffering can become something strong, beautiful, and composed. The fact that it is open-faced may also allude to the idea that she was very open with her emotions, as she would put them into her artwork. Untitled rope piece was made while Hesse was dying. A sad but successful piece that closed the chapter of Hesse's life. Untitled is a tangle of ropes hanging from the ceiling. This installation reveals the internal turmoil within Hesse. As an artist, knowing that her life might come to an end when she has a whole future of artwork ahead of her, but also as a human having experienced so much death and loss in such a short period of time, must have put a huge strain on her emotionally and mentally. However, she does not let her pain hinder her from creating. The rope piece may reflect the entanglement of thoughts, people, and hurt that she has built up throughout her life. However, if you notice, the ropes themselves are not holding themselves up, but are held up by wires. This may signify that Hesse could not hold herself up anymore and needed to rely on something outside of herself to keep her going. Unfortunately, this beautiful mess of a piece would be her last. The troubled mind of Eva Hesse composed many beautiful, strange, and out-of-the-ordinary works, not just for herself, but for others as well. Many artists would follow in her footsteps of combining mediums, as well as her unconventional styles of shape and form. Hesse, though a short career, is a very influential and impressive artist and person.